My sister slapped me in front of 200 people at her wedding because I would never stay silent when I saw the truth twisting itself into something cruel. And even now when I think about that moment, the shock, the sound, the collective gasp that filled the wedding hall, it feels like a dream I can't wake from. My sister Elena had always been the golden child, adored for her charm, her laughter, and her uncanny ability to make everyone believe life was as perfect as her social media posts suggested. Myra was quieter, the kind who noticed things people missed. From childhood, I was the one who remembered where she'd left her phone, the one who caught her crying in the dark when the world thought she was fine, and the one who loved her despite the shadows she pretended not to have. When she announced her wedding to Rehan, a man I barely knew but instantly distrusted, I tried to be supportive. He was handsome, rich, and charismatic, the kind who smiled with his mouth but not his eyes. I told myself I was being paranoid, that maybe I was jealous of my sister's fairy tale, but deep down I knew something was off. 2 nights before the wedding, I saw him in the parking lot of the event hall, his arm wrapped around another woman in a glittering red dress, whispering something that made her laugh the way my sister used to. My breath caught, my phone trembled in my hand, and for a moment I wanted to run away, but my heart said, Elena deserves to know. When I confronted him, he smirked, told me I misunderstood, and walked away like it didn't matter. I stayed awake all night, rehearsing how I would tell her without destroying her big day, but when I finally gathered the courage the next morning, she refused to listen. Myra, you always overthink, she snapped. Rehan loves me. You're just being dramatic again. Her words hurt more than I admitted. I thought maybe she was right, that my timing was cruel, so I stayed silent, until the moment that changed everything. During the wedding reception, while the lights glittered like stars and music filled the air, Rehan's phone fell from his pocket near the stage. I picked it up to return it, but the screen lit with a message from a contact saved as Layla read. Last night was perfect. Wish you were mine forever. My stomach dropped. Without thinking, I looked up at him laughing with my sister, pretending to be the perfect groom. Something inside me snapped, not from anger but from love for her. I walked toward the stage, the phone still glowing in my hand, and said, Elena, please look at this. She turned, confused, and before I could finish, Rehan snatched the phone, tried to hide it, but it was too late. The crowd's attention shifted, whispers rose like a storm. Elena's face turned pale, and instead of looking at him, she looked at me as if I had betrayed her. The next moment, her hand flew across my face. The sound echoed through the hall. 200 guests watched as I stood frozen, my cheek burning, my heart shattering. She screamed, "Why would you do this to me on my wedding day?" and ran out in tears. Everyone stared at me like I had ruined the fairy tale, and I felt the kind of loneliness you can't describe in words. My mother pulled me aside, furious and embarrassed, whispering, "Couldn't you wait one more day?" But how could I? I left the wedding quietly, walking into the cool night air, the music still playing behind me as if nothing had happened. For days, I stayed at home, not answering calls, the red mark on my cheek fading but the memory burning deeper. Social media buzzed with gossip, people debating whether I was jealous or cruel. I wanted to explain, but I also didn't want to expose Elena further. I thought I had lost her forever. Then a week later, she appeared at my apartment door, eyes swollen, mascara smudged, holding the same phone I'd tried to show her. "He confessed," she whispered. "Everything you said was true." She broke down in my arms, crying so hard that I forgot my own pain. That night, she told me how Rehan had been seeing someone for months, how he'd manipulated her into thinking she was crazy for suspecting anything. She said she slapped me because she couldn't face the truth in front of everyone. It was easier to make me the villain than to admit her world was collapsing. We sat together until sunrise, 2 sisters broken in different ways but bound by love stronger than betrayal. The next few weeks were chaos, annulments, public apologies, endless explanations, but something beautiful began to rebuild between us. Elena moved back home for a while, and I helped her pack her wedding dresses. The ones she said now felt like costumes from a lie. She laughed for the first time in weeks when I accidentally tripped over her veil, and that laugh, genuine and raw, told me she would heal. Months passed, and she began volunteering at a women's shelter, using her story to help others leave toxic relationships. I was proud of her. One evening, she invited me to a small dinner with close family and said she had something important to say. When everyone gathered, she stood up and said, "Before anything, I need to apologize to someone who saved me even when I didn't deserve it." Her eyes found mine, and before I could speak, she walked over and hugged me tight. "I'm sorry for that night," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. For hurting you in front of everyone, I was blind, but you opened my eyes." The guests clapped softly, some wiping tears, and for the first time I felt peace. It wasn't about proving I was right. It was about knowing love had won over shame. Later, when we were alone, she told me she had started talking to someone new, someone kind and patient, nothing like Rehan. I teased her gently, "This one better pass my background check," and she laughed, saying, "He already did." As months turned into a year, our bond grew even stronger. We traveled together, cooked late-night meals, and rebuilt trust piece by piece. Looking back now, I realize that slap, painful as it was, became the crack where light entered our story. It taught both of us that love without honesty is just decoration, and that family, no matter how broken, can still find its way back to truth. After that night of her apology, something between us changed forever. Not just in words, but in the silent understanding that sometimes love hurts before it heals, and that the people who push us away are often the ones who need us most. Elena began to smile again, not the forced, camera-ready smile she used to practice for her followers, but a real, glowing warmth that came from acceptance and peace. I watched her rediscover herself, learning to cook, reading again, even going on small solo trips to remind herself she didn't need anyone else to define her happiness. And as she grew stronger, I realized that I too had been changed by everything that happened. That night she slapped me, I thought I had lost my sister, but instead, I gained a deeper understanding of forgiveness and strength. It took months for the whispers to fade, but when they did, people began to see what I had seen all along. The truth wasn't about humiliation. It was about courage. One afternoon, while cleaning out some old boxes, I found the small childhood diary we used to share, the one where we'd write our dreams and secrets. In it, little Elena had written, "No matter what happens, Myra will always protect me." Reading those words made my eyes sting with tears. I closed the book and realized that even back then, she knew who I was to her. I didn't need anyone else's validation. Time, as it always does, softened the sharp edges of the past. By the next spring, our family had stopped walking on eggshells, laughter filled the house again, and we started making plans for our parents' anniversary party. Elena insisted on organizing everything herself, determined to replace the memory of her ruined wedding with something beautiful. On the day of the celebration, as we decorated the garden with fairy lights, she told me she had something to share after dinner. I saw the same nervous sparkle in her eyes that she used to have as a child before opening a big gift. When the guests had eaten and the music slowed, she stood, holding a small microphone, and said, "Last time we were all together like this, it ended in pain. But tonight I want to show that love can begin again." She gestured toward the gate, and in walked a man I had only seen in photos, a tall, gentle-looking guy named Faris. He smiled shyly, and I could tell right away that this wasn't another Rehan. He greeted my parents with respect, made everyone laugh with his awkward jokes, and most of all, treated Elena like she was something precious.